So we're doing this recording, Jessica, and I want to thank you that you're willing to share your experience with my audience. You've already given me feedback, and I like what you shared. It showed that you're really open to the coaching process. But for somebody who has never coached before, can you tell them what that's like, what to expect?
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to provide my thoughts. So, coaching with Karina is an eye-opening experience in a good way. Karina forced me to stretch my thought process and just challenge myself in ways that I wouldn't have been able to do on my own. And my coaching experience with you is that you allowed me to draw my own conclusions and have my own aha moments, which will make whatever experiences that we discussed at that particular time, it sticks. It's becomes part of my natural routine. So you didn't coax me into a general direction that you felt I should go. You gave me the tools that I needed to draw my own conclusions about what we were discussing at the time.
Yeah, that's great. And can you share a little bit more about what people should expect when they get into coaching? Like, did you have like a belief of what coaching is about that is not the same, that changed afterwards, or was coaching exactly what you expected?
No, so I basically thought a coach would be the person that would basically tell me what to do. So I come to you with an issue, you give me advice, kind of like a counselor deal, and then I go and follow your advice. Coaching's not that at all. Coaching is basically coming to a person and discussing whatever topics at hand, and then being given the tools to draw your own conclusions and implementing that into whatever process or dynamic, etc. at the time. So coaching is a twofold street, and it was led by me. It wasn't led by you. So basically, I got out of it what I put into it. So you got to be open-minded and be willing to receive the information and use that in order to draw your own conclusions. So you got to bring something to the meeting to make it fruitful.
And what is that?
So first of all, an open mind, because me personally, if it's not broke, don't fix it type person. And so speaking with you allowed me to look at things in a different view, a different lens. And it also allowed me to explore different types of profiles and thought processes, way of thinking of things, and trying something new and incorporating it into my daily routine and feeling comfortable and confident to do so. So at the point where we met, my confidence was lacking as far as speaking up and owning my voice and my place at the proverbial table, so to speak. But using some of the insights that you provided has totally increased my confidence tenfold since we met in a couple of months' time. So it hasn't really been that long, and I feel confident enough to have those challenging conversations and express my viewpoint without fear of retribution or being dismissed, and defending my said positions.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. I wonder, aside from the openness, which you indicated, you said you got to come prepared, you got to bring something in, you get in what you get out. Aside from the openness, how do you prepare for a session?
Well, my sessions, the timing was actually perfect because it was several things going on personally and professionally for me that I could bring to you to discuss. So the real life examples really helped. Basically, you just let me explain what was going on, and then you would provide constructive insights as to what I said. Because some of the times, what I would tell you in the beginning part of the conversation, I would contradict myself at the end of the conversation. And you have a great way of providing constructive feedback without putting me on a defensive. And sometimes when I talk, I don't realize that what I'm saying at the beginning doesn't marry up to what's at the end, what I'm intending to say. So you were very good at bringing things back together as to what the topic of conversation was at the time and keeping everything on track. So besides an open mind, you've got to bring a topic. And my advice would be to just draw from the experiences that are going on at the time. It is very easy to relate those to the topics that we were going through at the time. And it also makes it more credible, and it helps to whatever we discussed or the insight you're providing, it helped me to carry that forward to the next week, to the next day, to the next hour, because it's something that was credible to me and actually happening at that time.
Yeah, made it relatable and really hands-on. And then you mentioned carrying it forward. So say more about that.
So a lot of the things that we discussed, for instance, the capabilities of the team and how we did the heat map with
Mm.
what are the traits that are needed to make the team successful based on our goals. I had never sat down and did a deep dive into my team's strengths and weaknesses and how everybody's capabilities could possibly complement each other, or it could show what training's needed in certain areas across the team, or what developmental opportunities for some of my younger members are needed based on what I'm seeing from the team as a whole. And then prior to meeting you, it seems like I tended to gravitate towards folks that thought like me, process things like me, etc. But in doing that exercise, I saw, oh, well, I do need to be more intentional about filling in the gaps, especially where I lack as a leader. That way, the team as a whole can have all the capabilities that's needed to achieve said goal. So I necessarily don't have to have all the traits. I'd have to make sure that it's at certain places in my team.
Great. And how did you make sure that, like, between two coaching sessions, there was some progress made?
So actually, I've gotten very good feedback from my team because I brought some of the exercises that we completed to them. I've been very transparent with them about my coaching experience and some of the things we're discussing. And it's nothing like seeing it on paper or seeing it on a presentation and seeing the colors across the spectrum and how everybody contributes to the goal. And it provides more ownership on the team. It provides buy-in. It provides more synergy because everybody feels like their viewpoint, how they do things, is valid.
Yeah, that's a great example. What would you say to somebody that is critical of coaching? And I know you mentioned like one of your coworkers didn't think that that would be helpful.
I would say you've got to get out of your own way because I've had to do it. And, you get to a point where you have been in a certain profession or a certain role or doing a certain thing for several years. You think that there's no room to grow. There's always room to grow. There's always room for a different perspective, always a different way of doing things because the world is constantly changing. So I would recommend just get out of your own way, be a blank canvas. You just be surprised at the number of things that you don't know, or you can stretch what you already know and just put it used to in a different format.
You said there is learning, so you did take away something there, right? There's continued growth, but it's not like the coach tells you what to do. To somebody from the outside that doesn't have that experience yet, that might sound kind of like, which is it, either or. Like you're learning something
Right.
new, the coach doesn't tell you anything. How do you learn something?
Yeah. So you provided exercises during our time together where, for instance, for leadership exercise, you had me go through and it was just a list of adjectives that described different types of leaders. And I had to go through and circle the traits that I felt that my company looked for in a leader. And after the exercise, when we met the following time, we went through the actual adjectives. And surprisingly, some of the adjectives that I selected, it could be useful for certain situations and not useful for others. So, and you gave great examples. So I did an assessment for my personality traits, leadership styles, etc. And one of the strongest traits I had was commander. And I thought that word was very harsh and intimidating and not how I saw myself at all. And going through those exercises with you and you explaining how I could take the results, let me know that, well, sometimes you do want to have that the commander trait where you take charge and give the directive. So the example you gave was house is on fire.
Mm-hmm.
You want somebody that's collaborative. Say, okay, what do you guys think we should do? Should we take the stairs? Should we take the elevator? Should we go out the window? Or do you want somebody to say, get out, go down the stairs? This is the way.
Mm-hmm.
So in times of uncertainty or things that are challenging, or you need a quick response that is to prevent things happening to the team, you need somebody that goes into commander mode and get everybody to safety.
Mm-hmm.
Other times, the more collaborative approach may be more appropriate. For instance, if a new product is coming out that's being tested and you want to see how users would accept certain types of programs, then the more collaborative approach may be best for that situation. So just not taking everything literal and knowing that there is a space for all types of leadership, even within an individual, is important. And the other thing I learned from you was that I was worried about losing authenticity by stretching myself.
Mm-hmm.
And you helped me to see that I can still be authentic, but stretch myself to try different types of leaderships or different thoughts because situations may warrant, it may be best for the situation at the time. Just like I went back to the team. Everybody doesn't have to think like me, doesn't have to view things the way that I do. If all the pieces fit and we work together, then we should have everything that we need to achieve our annual goals and stretch goals for even that matter. So just being willing to be adaptive and agile really helps. So I think I was in a little bit of a rut when we first met, just doing things the same way each time. And so your insights and exercises that we went through helped me to stretch.
That's great. Yeah, that's interesting because it's often a topic that comes up. If I change the way I lead, if it's too much agility or adaptability, making me like a chameleon, like, I'm losing my authenticity. And what I'm hearing you say is you didn't have to do that. Like you can still stay who you are. But for this one situation, in order to achieve the common good, the goal that we're chasing after, I can stretch myself a little bit in a different area and maybe lead in a collaborative way when like my default mode would be more directive.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great insight. So you mentioned the word stretching a few times, and coaching in a way, like there's this growth requires stretching, and I imagine that can be exhausting on the other side, right? Like you're sitting in a coaching session, you go, I need a break. You're
Yeah,
laughing.
it was, yeah. I told you a few times, I felt like I'm being flipped inside out.
I remember that. Uh-huh.
But I didn't know what I had in me. So without that, I wouldn't have discovered like my own aha moments that I mentioned earlier. I didn't realize that, oh, wow, I had these traits because I always thought I was a specific type of leader. And then just how I'm answering the questions, being honest with myself,
Mm-hmm.
it brings out things I didn't know was lying beneath the surface that I wouldn't have discovered without you just giving me the little nudge to see that. And then we change over time too. So I'm thinking I'm the same person I was 10 years ago. And I'm not. Like I see the world different. I'm still the same person, but my experiences have shown me that how I thought 10 years ago is not how I think today. And so I've grown and matured in my thought process and am willing to just be more agile and flexible.
Really good. So it sounds like the coaching experience, as exhausting as it can be when you are flipped inside out, as you say, right? It is also like on the opposite side, it's also rewarding because you grow your confidence, you learn something new. So there's a reward in that. So it seems like a good balance. How do you determine what a good balance is for you in terms of how frequently to meet? What advice would you give to somebody?
That's the other thing that I liked about our coaching. You didn't give me a set cadence. It
Mhm.
was very flexible. So one week I could just be having one of those weeks. I need to talk to you within the next couple of days or the following week. Other times we may go a couple of weeks without speaking, but it depends on where you are in the cycle. Sometimes you need more, sometimes you need less. So I know that's a gray answer, but I like that it can be gray, because if it was something that was regimented, I don't think that I would have the same affinity. The flexibility is what also is the draw for me, because I have several hats that I wear. I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I'm a manager, I'm a sister. So it's a lot going on, a lot of balls to juggle in the air, and trying to figure out which balls are rubber and which balls are glass. Some weeks I may need extra help with that. And so you've always been very accessible to discuss that with me with no judgments. I didn't feel like I was being judged during the coaching process. You were very open and inviting and wanting to help and wanting to get the best result for me, not based off anybody else. And you never compared me with any other client. So whatever we discussed, I knew it was confidential. I knew it was between us, and it was based on me.
Oh, that's great insight. That's great to hear. How do you ensure after a coaching session, so you had all this insight and then we walk away from each other, how do you ensure that you keep the momentum?
Well, you also introduced me to journaling. And journaling has helped me to keep myself accountable, because when I go back and read certain things, it's, oh, I did say I was going to do that. Well, let me do that now, or let me be more intentional. So it's nothing like seeing it on paper, written in my words, that gives me the motivation to keep myself honest. And then when we speak, it just so happens to come up whatever topic we've discussed in the past, or I wanted to discuss at that time. You'll say, oh, well, what are your thoughts on that? Did you complete your journal? And I'm like, oh, sometimes I did, sometimes I didn't. But the journal, I've gotten much better at that now. And so the journal is what really helps to keep me on track with my goals.
Were there any habits that you developed since we started coaching?
So I have learned to be able to gracefully interrupt. Before my coaching experience, if I felt like I wasn't being heard, I would withdraw. I would withdraw from the conversation, withdraw from the meeting, just be a fly on the wall. And then if I had something to say, I would just go to whoever facilitated the meeting after the fact, behind the scenes, and provide my thoughts or send an email. Now I can gracefully interrupt, even if somebody's my superior or one of my peers, or if I feel like folks are getting a little animated. I now feel confident to interject and get my viewpoint across as well. So in certain rooms, I can begin to develop my credibility as a thought leader or a subject matter expert on certain things. So instead of withdrawing, I'm now an active participant as well. And I don't worry about the appearance of looking pushy or looking like I'm being rude. So that was one of my biggest fears as well, the appearance, since I'm joining the conversation, which can be sometimes spirited. How do I appear as a leader? And a lot of times I'm one of the few women in the room as well. So that also could be intimidating for me. But now I feel confident that they need to hear what I have to say. And a lot of times, a lot of folks that aren't speaking in the room, they'll write me on the side and say, thank you for saying that. I was thinking the same thing. Just didn't know how to interject myself into the conversation. So even I can help my colleagues get their confidence as well, male or female.
Yeah, that's amazing. And just for the audience, because they don't know who you are, but you are a leader and you're a seasoned leader because you have had direct reports for many, many years. So you're not new to this position. Still, like confidence, because, sometimes leaders come into a session and they say, what do other people talk about, like other leaders? And they think nobody has their insecurities. And I know that's not true but your confidence grew. Is there like a pivotal moment? Is there like one moment, or is there several things that contributed to that confidence growing?
So the insights that I got from coaching were very practical, meaning that I could use it in daily life. It didn't seem like it was theory, like the things you read in the leadership books and the training and etc. So that's when I started incorporating things into like the one-on-ones with my employees, using the heat map that we completed together, or the leadership traits that I found that I had by completing that assessment. And it's okay to own all of me, not just the parts that I think are positive and what I think people want to see a leader look like. That's when I knew I was getting the confidence, because I was actually incorporating what we were talking about in my daily steps. And it felt natural. I didn't feel like I was being fake or trying to portray something that I wasn't. It's actually becoming part of the fiber of who I am. And I'm okay with that.
Oh, that's interesting. So you're losing the fear of the negative a little bit, like not only just the positive.
Exactly.
You said, like, it's okay. I have sides that maybe perceive negative, but they have a place too. That's powerful.
We discussed like a particular trait, like collaborative leadership, for example. And it's two ends of the spectrum with that. So on one end, it's good to have your team feel like they're part of the team, collaborate, etc. But on the opposite end of the spectrum, when a decision needs to be made quickly, like the house being on fire, the collaborative nature is not effective. So you got to learn the balances, the both sides, the flip side of the coin for each trait, and be aware of the pitfalls as well as the positives. So I was focusing more on the positive traits of each leadership trait that I aspired to be, instead of looking at the flip side of the coin. Like, well, if you do this all the time and apply it across the board, it may not be as effective in certain situations. So
Yeah.
just being mindful of that as well.
Yeah, it sounds like you wind your tool belt and like you got a navigation system now, like with all of these
Right.
widened opportunities. Well, that's phenomenal. Is there anything else you want to say about your coaching experience to anybody who's listening in, who's on the fence, doesn't know what this is about?
Well, I do want to say that anybody that has the opportunity to try it, you have nothing to lose, because the coaching experience is all about you. It's not about your coach. It's not about your team. It's not about your family. It's something that you can do for you. And I don't think there's a downside. Basically, you're taking your own experiences and getting some constructive insights from an objective third party who's not going to force you. They shouldn't force you to draw their conclusion. It's all about you. It's all about your conclusions. So if you feel a certain way about a certain topic, it's okay. It's you. It's no wrong answers in the process. And I think you come out better as a result, because you learn to make yourself more well-rounded in your thought process and how you interact with others. And it's not just in a professional aspect. You can also use it personally as well. So I don't think there's a downside, and you should bet on yourself. And I think when you go through a coaching experience, you're betting on you. So again, there's no downside, and you can only learn from the experience and continue to grow into what you want to be.
Yeah, that's great. So as you were talking, I'm thinking maybe somebody feels, oh, this is all about me, but I don't want to be self-centered. The problem I have right now is with my team, or with other areas, like organizationally, like I have real life problems. It's not just about me, and I want to fix those things. What would you say to them?
It starts with you. Like it's like they say on the plane, you got to put on your mask first before you can help others. So getting a greater understanding of who you are and where you want to be, and knowing exactly how you want to tackle things, or the end goal at the end of the day, it starts with you. And if you're the leader, the buck stops with you. So it is about you. And you've got to own that, because I'm guilty of thinking that way as well. Like, well, it's not about me, it's about the team, it's about my family. But I have self-care is very important. And if you aren't able to realize what you need, then you can't be an effective resource for anybody else or anything else or any task. So you got to take care of yourself. And coaching is a good way to do that. And I found it to be very productive, because I could incorporate the things immediately into my life, personally and professionally.
Well, Jessica, I cannot thank you enough. You've been a great client. You always came prepared. You were open-minded, just like you described. You have been so much fun to work with too. And thank you so much for joining the call to share a little bit with others how the experience was.
I appreciate the opportunity to share. It's been great working with you as well.
Thank you so much.